Like to call the meeting to order for October. Like to call a meeting to order for October 26, 2022. Pledge of Allegiance. Mercedes.
Right. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Thank you. Roll call. Liz?
Thank you, Vice Chair. This evening, Chair Chuan and Commissioner Mosen are absent. Now I'll take attendance, starting with Commissioner Albana,
present.
Commissioner Awasti,
Present.
Vice Chair Ciardella,
Present.
Commissioner Galang,
Present.
Commissioner Medina Ashby.
Present.
Thank you.
A conflict of interest, Michael?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Ask each of the commissioners whether he or she has any financial or personal conflict of interest related to any of the items on tonight's agenda.
Commissioner Albana,
None.
Commissioner Awasti,
None.
Vice Chair Ciardella,
None.
Commissioner Galang,
None.
Commissioner Medina Ashby.
None.
Thank you.
And today we don't have any applicants appearing before you, so we don't need the other. Minutes to the end.
Okay, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as submitted?
Vice Chair, I'd like to move for the approval of the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, call for a vote. Mercedes,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Deepak,
Aye.
and Sonia,
Aye.
and myself, I. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes for September 28th?
I make a motion to approve the minutes for September 28th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I need a motion to approve the minutes for October 12th.
Mr. Chair, we may have an issue with October 12th because 2 of the 5 who were here today were absent at that meeting and won't they be able to vote on that? I guess they. Okay, never mind. The attorney says it's okay. I didn't know if we could.
Yeah. Can I get a motion?
Yeah. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the October 12th.
And a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I abstained because I wasn't present at that meeting.
On October 12th, I was also not present. I just saw that.
Any announcements from the commission? Oh, really? Okay. Then, Michael, do we have to continue that October 28th minutes? Ned?
My understanding of the vote was 3-0 with 2 abstentions, which would the motion would pass at that point.
Okay. All right, great. Let's see. Announcements? Any of the commissioners have any announcements? Planning director?
No announcements tonight.
No,
Thank you.
Okay. Now, a question for the attorney. Do we have to read the public forum since nobody's in the audience?
There may be someone on Zoom. You should go ahead and read the public forum and call for question.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and read it then. Those interested are invited to address the planning commission on any subject not on tonight's agenda. Orally via Zoom, webinar instructions on the website. Speakers may provide their name, city of residence, recording secretary recorded, and comments may be limited to 3 minutes or less. Any item not listed on the agenda, no response is required by city staff, planning commission, and no action can be taken. Planning commission may instruct the staff to place the items on future agendas. Liz, is there anyone on Zoom?
Chair, there are no community members in Zoom for a public forum. Thank you.
Okay, then we have the public hearing. Zoning amendment E ZA 22-006 158-300 South Hillview Drive, a city initiated zoning map amendment to rezone 3 parcels. APN 086-38-021-022 and 037, totaling 2 gross acres from M2 heavy industrial zoning to M2 light industrial zoning for the purpose of creating an appropriate safety and noise buffer between existing R1 low-density single-family neighborhood located south of Las Cochas and west of Interstate 680, and the nearby M2 heavy industrial area located west of South Hillview Drive. The project is exempt from environmental review under the California Environmental Quality Act. Pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15061 B and 3, common sense exemptions as a separate and independent basic section 1518 through project consists with a community plan, general plan, or zoning. Lillian is going to present the project. Lillian, if you're ready.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Good evening, commissioners and fellow staff. My name is Lillian Van Hoa, Senior Planner here with the City of Milpitas. Next slide, please. As mentioned, the item before you is a city-initiated zoning map amendment to rezone 3 parcels at 158 to 200 South Hillview Drive, 230 to 250 South Hillview Drive, and 300 South Hillview Drive, located along the east side of South Hillview Drive from the M2 Heavy Industrial Zoning District to the M1 Light Industrial Zoning District. The purpose of the zone change is to create an appropriate safety and noise buffer between the existing R1 low-density single-family neighborhoods located south of Los Coches Street and west of Highway 680, and the adjacent M2 heavy industrial zones located west of South Hillview Drive. Next slide, please. In October 2019, the City Council adopted ordinance number 38.837 to restrict public assembly and other non-industrial uses in the M2 heavy industrial zoning district. In late 2020, planning staff spoke with the property owner of 3 parcels along the east side of South Hillview Drive regarding possible tenants for the 3 commercial light industrial buildings on the parcels. Due to the new restrictions on assembly and non-commercial uses in the underlying M2 zone, the range of tenants allowed to rent smaller spaces in the existing buildings was severely limited. Moreover, most of the existing tenants in the buildings were now identified as legal non-conforming, with no legal possibility of physical expansion or intensification. Next slide, please. As you can see on the screen, the project site encompasses 3 separate parcels totaling 2.8 acres located along the east side of South Hillview Drive, and it is approximately 1,200 feet southerly from Los Coches Street. All 3 parcels are currently zoned M2 heavy industrial. The major roadways tangent to the site include Los Coches to the north and South Hillview Drive to the east. The Berryessa Creek runs along the entire east side of the properties, and Yosemite Drive is the nearest major street to the south. High transmission electrical lines run above the site with towers along the South Hillview Drive frontage. The 2 northerly parcels are developed with single-story multi-tenant commercial and light industrial buildings with surface parking lots below the electrical lines along South Hillview Drive. Current tenants of those 2 buildings include administrative and financial offices, commercial, retail, and professional uses, small research and development firms, and a radio station. And the entire single-story building located on the most southerly parcel is occupied by a church known as Kingdom Hall. Development over the years has resulted in a transition from a typical industrial setting to one of an office and quasi-public setting. Next slide, please. Here is the current zoning map of the project site. The surrounding zoning includes M2 heavy industrial to the immediate west and south, R1 single family residential to the east, and TC Town Center to the north. And as mentioned, the site abuts South Hillview Drive to the west and Berryessa Creek to the east. Next slide. Here is a side-by-side comparison of the current zoning map on the left and the proposed zoning map on the right. There are other large M2 heavy industrial zone parcels that abut the R1 parcels in the neighborhood, but these are larger lots that are occupied by existing large buildings. Staff will be assessing this condition as part of the upcoming comprehensive zoning update. Next slide, please. So the proposed zoning map amendment will change the existing zoning from M2 heavy industrial to M1 light industrial. The M1 light industrial zoning district is reserved for the construction, use, and occupancy of buildings and facilities for office, research, limited and light manufacturing, as well as other compatible uses. The proposed zone change is consistent with the general plan, as both M1 and M2 fall under the general plan land use designation of MFG manufacturing. The M1 light industrial zoning district is an appropriate designation for the project area, not only because it will create an appropriate safety and noise buffer between the single family residential zones to the east and the heavy industrial zones to the west and south, but all existing uses within the project area are either permitted or conditionally permitted within the light industrial zoning district. This change will allow the property owner to market and lease to a wider variety of possible tenants and larger variety of use classifications. A notice was published in the Milpitas Post and a sign was placed on the property. The city also sent out 488 postcards informing residents and property owners within 1,000 feet of the project area. To date, staff has not received any comments. Staff has confirmed that the project meets the findings associated with the zoning map amendment. The proposed amendment is consistent with the Milpitas general plan because the new zoning designation creates an appropriate safety buffer between the R1 low density single family residential and M2 heavy industrial zones along Hillview Drive. This zone change allows for more appropriate uses, such as a variety of commercial, medical, quasi-public uses, as well as clean light industrial uses to operate at the project site. The proposed amendment will not adversely affect the public health, safety, and welfare, as the new zoning designation will create a safety buffer between the R1 low-density single-family residential neighborhoods to the east and the heavy industrial areas to the west and south. And lastly, the zoning change from M2 to M1 will allow a wider variety of commercial, medical, quasi-public, and clean and light industrial uses that are environmentally sustainable and more appropriate for the project site and the public health, safety, and welfare of nearby residents, workers, and customers. The introduction and adoption of this ordinance is not subject to review under the California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA guideline sections 15061B3, also known as the common sense exemption. The project only includes a change to the land use designations. Further, no development is considered as part of the project, and none of the proposed amendments would directly or indirectly result in physical changes to the environment. Therefore, it can be seen with certainty that there is no possibility that the zoning map amendment in question would have a significant effect on the environment. And as a separate and independent basis, the project is exempt pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15183, projects consistent with general plan, community plan, or zoning. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission open and close the public hearing, consider the exemptions for the California Environmental Quality Act, and adopt Resolution 22-021, recommending that the City Council approve zoning amendment ZA 22-0006 to change the zoning designations of 3 parcels located along the east side of South Hillview Drive and approximately 1,200 feet southerly from Los Cochas Street, from the M2 heavy industrial zoning district to the M1 light industrial zoning district. This concludes staff's presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does the planning commission have any questions for her? Alex?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Ms. Lillian, this project is very familiar to me. I know there's one-story building and there's a dental lab, dental orthodontics dental office. So that will consider as a heavy M2 heavy industrial zoning. That's a one-story, right, building.
So currently the 3 parcels along Hillview Drive are zoned heavy industrial already. So the zoning map amendment tonight is to rezone those properties to light industrial, so that a use like or a medical use is now or would be legal as opposed to legal non-conforming.
So the existing business must go after we approve this rezoning.
No,
No.
all the businesses can stay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Commissioners, any other questions?
Vice Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Lillian, for that presentation, and well prepared. Definitely, it's really appropriate for the safety and noise buffer between the low density residential and also the heavy. What about offices that would be under education and possibly have an assembly? Is that also, will that still fall under light industrial?
So assembly uses are allowed with a conditional use permit in the M1 light industrial zone.
They'll have to go through the regimen of applying and qualifying.
Correct.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, if I may, just to clarify on that. So under the existing M2 heavy industrial, the assembly use would not be allowed, but with the change, then it would be allowed under M1. So as Lillian was explaining, that the M1 zoning actually expands the types of uses and the number of different types of uses that can go into the smaller buildings.
Thank you, Director.
Deepak, you have a question? Or
Thank you, Vice Chair. My question is, nothing changes as far as the building is concerned. They're not going to construct anything, and everything remains the same, except that more offices or medical stores or anything like shops, offices will be allowed. Will it also include some retail over there, the light engineering? And if somebody wants to open a church or a temple, will that be also allowed? Thank you.
So a general retail store would require a conditional use permit. And then any new churches or other places of assembly would require a conditional use permit under the new M1 light industrial zoning district. And for example, and whereas before or currently as it stands under the M2 zone, all of those uses are not permitted.
Oh, thank you.
hey, any other questions? I'd like to invite the members of the public to address the commission. And I understand Mr. Jordan is on Zoom, the property owner. If we have any questions for him or he'd like to make a statement.
I have no questions or statements at this time.
Okay, thank you. No one else, Liz? Okay. I need a motion to close the public forum.
I make a motion to close the public forum.
Second.
And I need a motion to approve the project or deny the project.
Vice Chair, I'll motion to approve. This is great to know that the zone change allows for more appropriate uses and also more tenants could be encouraged. So I will move, where is that? Can we show it on the screen? Vice Chair, I would like to,
Vice Chair, I know you asked for a motion to close the public hearing, and that was motioned by Commissioner Wastley, second by Albana. Shall we take roll call to vote?
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Can we get a vote on that, please?
Starting with Commissioner Wastley,
Yes.
Commissioner Galong,
Aye.
Commissioner Albana,
aye.
Vice Chair Ciardella,
Aye.
and Commissioner Medina Ashby.
Aye.
The public hearing is, thank you.
Closed. Thank you. Hey, can I get a motion to approve the project again, please?
Vice Chair, I'd like to motion to approve, adopt
Second.
resolution.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Albana, a second by Commissioner Medina Ashby. And I'll take roll call, starting with Commissioner Wastley,
Yes.
Commissioner Galong,
Aye.
Commissioner Albana,
Aye.
Vice Chair Ciardella,
Aye.
Commissioner Medina Ashby,
Aye.
5 ayes, and it's approved. Thank you.
A quick question. Are we not supposed to read the entire recommendation?
Yes,
So
should we?
we can clarify the motion if the commission wishes. And you can read the entire recommendation, or you may state that your motion was as recommended on the agenda.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Yes, I move for the approval of the adoption of the resolution, and it's fine if everybody approves it. Thank you.
Can I get a second? No? We did already. Okay, good. So all in favor?
Chair,
Aye.
excuse me. Did you chance to read all in the screen of this adopt resolution, the entire?
Hey, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Congratulations.
So you do have to take votes by roll call because we're using a hybrid meeting.
Okay. And Deepak,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Mercedes,
Aye.
and myself, aye.
What about me?
Oh, I almost forgot about you.
Aye.
We presumed you're right.
Thank you, Sonia.
You're welcome.
Okay, on to the next item. Zoning ordinance text amendment. Outdoor dining citywide, EZA 22-0005. A city initiated zoning ordinance text amendment to add definitions and regulations related to outdoor dining facilities as accessory uses to restaurants within the city of Milpitas. The project is exempt from environmental review under California Environmental Quality Act pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15061 E and 3 common sense exemptions. As a separate and independent basis, section 15183 project consists with a community plan, general plan, or zoning. The item was continued from October 12th Planning Commission meeting. And it's on to project planner Michael.
Thank you, Vice Chair Ciaradella and Director Thomas, fellow staff, and members of the public. Again, my name is Michael Fasadi. I'm a senior planner here, and I'm actually working, partnering with Holly Pearson, the planning consultant for the city of Milpitas. And this is in regards to a zoning text amendment for permanent outdoor dining. Next slide, please. So the purpose of the proposed ordinance is to allow outdoor dining areas for restaurants and cafes throughout the city on a permanent basis. If approved by the City Council and first recommended from approval by the Planning Commission, a new section will be adopted within our existing zoning ordinance, creating regulations, standards, and guidelines for restaurants and cafe owners to lawfully operate these outdoor dining areas, specifically in existing vehicle parking space areas. These regulations were created to increase opportunities for restaurants and cafes to expand their business operations while promoting an active, vibrant, pedestrian-oriented commercial environment, and while at the same time protect the retail and office businesses and their customers' needs. Next slide, please. The city defines an outdoor dining area as any privately owned outdoor area serving as an extension of the indoor customer seating area for a cafe or restaurant, which occupies space adjacent to the business that was formerly used for a vehicle parking, pedestrian circulation, or similar uses related to the seating or customers. This specific zoning amendment will not address outdoor dining areas that within the public right-of-way within what we know as street parking. This is specifically for private property parking spaces or parking areas. Encroachment into the public-private right-of-way will be addressed when the city completes a comprehensive zoning code amendment, which will hopefully start sometime next year. Next slide, please. In summary, as long as the restaurant owner meets the standards required by the city will be able to approve such areas at staff level via a minor site development permit. This includes restaurants that operate per an existing conditional use permit. The process has been created to make it easy as possible for restaurants and cafes to expand their place of business if they choose to see fit and have the appropriate amount of space to do such. The following slides will demonstrate the regulations the city is proposing to allow these permanent outdoor dining facilities. Next slide, please. The tables and chairs must be properly spaced to allow ADA access adjacent to the cafe itself, which includes adjacent off-street parking on private property. Tables, chairs, and barriers will not be allowed to encroach in those emergency access areas or loading zones or stormwater treatment facilities or places that can create a potential safety hazards. Next slide, please. One way to incentivize outdoor dining is by reducing required parking spaces. For restaurants in any mixed-use zone, which the Planning Commission knows as the Transit Area Specific Plan, or it'll be the future Milpitas Metro Plan when that's approved, or the Milpitas Midtown Specific Plan, which we also know as the future Milpitas Gateway Main Street Specific Plan. Required parking for restaurants with outdoor dining that goes into vehicle parking areas may be reduced by up to 50%. For restaurants in all other commercial areas, the required parking may be reduced up to 15%. The large degree of reduced parking in TASP and Midtown has to do with the amount of multimodal transportation options a customer has access to. In TASP and in Midtown, the city's striving to make bus stops available, light rail stations, close to light rail stations, and other ways to get to these restaurants and destination areas without a car. Next slide, please. The city is also requiring barriers that are of high quality, such as wood or iron railings, planter boxes, and decorative concrete at a maximum height of 3 feet. They can be taller as long as they use a transparent material, such as a plastic glass or plastic window. Next slide, please. The city will also permit overhead shade structures, including pergolas that are durable and made with high quality materials and maximum height limits. Since the shade structures will be covering people, a building permit will typically be required unless it's an umbrella, of course. And non-permanent shade structures, like properly placed umbrellas, will also be permitted and allowed without a building permit. The city will provide minimal vertical clearances and horizontal extensions for such structures to make sure that the proposed structures are adequately placed and they do not interfere with individuals wanting to use the outdoor space. Next slide, please. Tables and chairs must also be of high quality and must be placed in a manner that meets ADA accessibility requirements. Any additional signage will need to comply with the zoning code. Next slide, please. And we will allow the outdoor dining to operate during the restaurant hours, but we do have some caps. So they will not be able to open the outdoor dining component no earlier than 7 a.m. and no later than 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday. We do allow an additional hour at 11 p.m. on Fridays and Saturdays. Smoking, vaping, or preparing food will not be allowed in outdoor dining areas per the zoning amendment. And lastly, these areas must be maintained in a clean, glitter-free manner. Next slide, please. Findings can be made that the proposed project is consistent with the findings required to allow a zoning amendment. Those being that the amendment is consistent with the general plan and the proposed amendment will not adversely affect public health, safety, and welfare. You'll see in the staff report additional findings per our economic development element are very consistent with this proposed permanent outdoor dining arrangement. Next slide, please. The zoning amendment is also exempt per CEQA section 15061, also known as the common sense exemption, where it can be seen with certainty that there is no possibility the project will have a significant impact on the environment. It's further exempt from CEQA per section 15183, since commercial operations and mixed use and commercial zoning districts are already permitted through our general plan and zoning ordinance. Next slide, please. So in closing, staff recommends the Planning Commission adopt Resolution 22-022, recommending City Council approve the zoning text amendment permitting permanent outdoor dining, as well as consider the exemption per the California Environmental Quality Act. This concludes staff's summary of the proposed project. If the Planning Commission has any questions, please feel free to address me. Again, Holly Pearson, the city's planning consultant that drafted the ordinance, or Director Thomas. I'm sure one of us can provide you an answer. Thank you for your time.
Anyone have any questions for Michael? Or Ned or anybody? None? Okay. I do have one question. You know, as I was looking at the picture here, it dawned on me. I know the tents are fireproof. The tents are fireproof. Are the umbrellas fireproof also? Does anyone know?
So that's a great question. That's the whole reason why we would require a minor site development permit, which the planning department would take in. The fire prevention would probably ask that question about if they're fire retardant, and depending on the fire code, it'd be allowed or not allowed.
Okay, great. So the question will be answered. Okay.
We also have Deputy Fire Chief Arthur Belton available, I just noticed. If he might be able to answer that specifically.
Hey, great. Arthur, it's all yours.
Chair.
Sorry, a little delay as I'm getting promoted into the ability to speak to you at this point. Yeah, anything that is going to be covering any situation, we're going to be looking at, are they fire rated and are they approved to do so? I'm less concerned just from a practical standpoint of just having something over personnel or people that are in the occupancy more so concerned about whether we have heaters or something underneath that. So the fire rating gives us a lot of latitude and ability to sort of work with that. And that's the importance there. So any umbrellas that are like being proposed in a plan, that we're going to definitely consider that they need to be fire rated for them to be used permanently.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else? Alex, do you have any?
Yeah, I have a question regarding about that umbrella. So all the tables and tents must be removed after 10 p.m.
Yes, in order to be in compliance with this proposed zoning amendment, the tables and chairs, they wouldn't be allowed to operate past 10 p.m. Depending on the cases, we probably require removal. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. I'd probably do a case by case basis because right now we do allow outdoor dining. And if I recall, Pete's Coffee at the town center, which allows outdoor tables and chairs, they do not remove their tables and chairs. So
That means it's fixed, the tables and chairs.
I believe just the operator chooses not to remove them.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
I have a question, Vice Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Deepak.
When for the outdoor area, when COVID struck, a lot of restaurants, they built kind of a tent and moved the chairs outside for outside dining. And now I see one example. I like the restaurant. Everything is good. Few months back, I was at the Banana Leaf and McCarthy Ranch. They have the outside enclosure. And there was a person, he was coming from the Verizon store and he wanted to come to the restaurant and he had to come all the way, come into the main road and then go up and go to the restaurant. And he was complaining that the sidewalk is blocked. You guys are using it. And I had to come all the way. Any vehicle could have struck me. And they were saying, oh, sorry, and all those things. So we have to make sure that when we are going to allow something like this, there are a lot of restaurants, even now, the public right of way in a private parking lot, especially people with limited access in wheelchairs, how they can pass from one business to the other when a few parking lots are taken up by a restaurant. So we got to address that.
Thank you, Commissioner Aswathi. I believe that these regulations that do, and I'll repeat, require the restaurant have ADA access. The tent, I know which one you're referring to. There's quite a few restaurants that wouldn't be meeting the standards of the zoning amendment today. And I think the planning department was going to kind of work together, assuming this is approved, to address those restaurants and see how we can get them into compliance with appropriate materials.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, if I may. So the restaurants in Milpitas now that still have outdoor dining left over from the pandemic, which we initially had a temporary program with some temporary standards. And these standards are modeled after those, but they're a little bit more clear and they'll be part of the zoning ordinance. So yeah, some of the existing restaurants have outdoor dining that does not meet the current standards. And that's, once this is adopted, we would have them they would need to come in to have us review it, as Michael stated, through a minor site development permit. And we would look at all of those issues. But I might ask Holly, she's a little more familiar with the specifics here. It's written in to the standards that they would need to have a certain path of travel. And it's to address that specific instance that you mentioned at Banana Leaf. Holly, could you address that a little bit?
Yes, be happy to. So that's correct. I'd actually first like to point out, Michael mentioned this in the presentation, but just to reiterate, so This set of amendments is only focused on outdoor dining on private property. So the issue of outdoor dining in the public right of way, as you mentioned, Commissioner, on sidewalks and when it comes out into the street parking area, we did look at that and start to draft some regulations, but ultimately decided not to include that in this round of amendments. We wanted to be able to get these amendments passed quickly so that restaurants can take advantage of putting outdoor dining, permanent outdoor dining spaces on private property. It's a little more complicated when you start talking about the public right of way. There are more safety issues, and there are more things that have to do with city infrastructure, what distance you need to maintain from fire hydrants, from bus stops, how much clearance for drainage if you're building a parklet in a street parking space, for example. So all of those issues will be vetted further and then included in the comprehensive zoning update. But to get back to your immediate question, so in this set of zoning amendments, we have a requirement for a 5-foot wide path of travel from any parking areas or walkways to the entrance of any businesses. And then also the example that you were giving in the case of an enclosed, so if you have an outdoor dining that it's enclosed with barriers, there is a requirement, and this actually comes from, I believe it's the state disabled accessibility standards or the ADA requirements, but it's you're required to have an opening, egress opening of, I believe it's 36 inches in width every 20 feet. So those accessibility requirements are built into these zoning amendments.
Thank you. But if the sidewalk is also covered with tables, so if the person on a wheelchair has to come down on the road and go around to the main entrance because the sidewalk is also covered, so that way it creates a life endangering situation for the person. And there are cars who make a left turn very quickly on that location. And the gentleman was right in protesting that I should have my right of way on the sidewalk when I come from one business to your business. I'm your customer also. So that is something we need to address before something happens to someone. Thank you.
You might want to correct me, Michael, but I thought that they had to have a 3-foot span from the curb to the tables and stuff, so the sidewalk would still be open. Is that correct?
Two things. I believe that's correct, but I know specifically Commissioner Swami's situation. We weren't talking about a public right. He's referring to the private walkways in front of Banana Leaf in those restaurants, and it addresses the tent comment. The tent kind of has some walls in it, and it, if I'm not mistaken, closes off, so someone would have to go around that tent to access the front door. I think these conditions will allow different access points through the proper spacing of tables and chairs to meet the ADA requirement. I just want to put that on the record, but to you, Vice Chair Shiradella, that is correct. We're not allowing tables and chairs to get, I think the setback is 3 feet, if I'm not mistaken, Holly, if even farther away from a public sidewalk.
If I may, Chair, I'll read from the draft ordinance here. This is in section D, which is location and siting requirements under A. And the second sentence, a minimum 5-foot wide path of travel shall be maintained along all pedestrian walkways from parking areas and public sidewalks to all public building entrances. And we inserted that language specifically. We actually anecdotally, planning staff had been to that same restaurant that you're talking about, and we had noticed that their outdoor dining situation had gotten, they had expanded a little bit more than they were allowed even under the temporary standards. And I think I'm aware, and remarked on it at the time that they needed to remove one of their tables because it was on the sidewalk blocking the path of travel. So I think this was already in the draft ordinance, but if it wasn't, we added it at that time. So we are requiring again a 5 foot wide path of travel from any parking area, particularly an ADA area, to the public building entrance. So that would clear that sidewalk, and we would catch that when the restaurant comes in to apply for their minor site development permit, and their application will include a site plan and their operational plan, and we would look at that and how they're laying out their tables, and then if anything is, if they have not provided the 5 foot path of travel, then we would require that to be them to amend their setup so that the 5 foot path of travel is there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's, if I may, it's also worth adding, as Michael and Ned and I have been discussing, during the pandemic, because it was an emergency situation, not just in Milpitas, but everywhere, kind of anything went, and it was a lot more lenient in terms of what was permitted. But this is our intention in writing these regulations, was to kind of clean that up and make it so that these outdoor dining areas would really be designed well, they'd be safe, they'd conform with proper standards and everything. So that's something we had in mind as we drafted them.
Vice Chair.
Mercedes, you got a question?
Yes, and also maybe I'd like to address this to Holly. So moving forward, we're defining this definitions and regulations with regards to outdoor dining regulations, design. I see most of the photos with umbrellas, beautiful light. Is it going to be allowed to have this tent again? Because somehow tents don't look very good. And then another thing is, how do you address adding the guidelines of like safety, like people, younger generation will use skateboards or scooters? Will you have regulations for this for the safety?
So the first part of your question was about tents, correct? That I understand you, yes. So tents would not be permitted under these regulations because it talks about the barriers or enclosures for outdoor dining areas. They must be high quality and durable materials, and it gives some examples of wood and iron railings, wood railings, and things like that. So no, the tents would not be permitted under these new regulations. And then safety, we included some fairly general language about safety. We included setback requirements from parking, from areas where vehicles would be passing or parking, and just general language about emergency access regulations per the fire code. We didn't specifically address things like the examples that you mentioned about skateboards or scooters. I don't know if Ned, if you have thoughts about that, or one of the other city staff.
I don't necessarily have anything to add. I think our main concern was to require a barrier, to provide some type of a safety barrier between vehicle traffic and anyone who was dining outside. We hadn't thought so much about someone traveling on a scooter. I think we would treat them more along the lines of a pedestrian. But the barriers would protect from those types of vehicles, if you will, two-wheel vehicles, or bicycles and scooters, as well as automobiles.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you.
Hey, any other questions? And we'll bring it out to the public to address commission on any of I'd like to ask the audience or anybody on Zoom if they have any questions. Liz?
Vice Chair, we have our Economic Development Director with his hand raised. I'm gonna allow him to speak.
Okay, great. Go ahead, Alex.
Good evening, Vice Chair Sardella and Planning Commissioners. Alex Andrade, Director of Economic Development. Just wanted to say on behalf of the Office of Economic Development that we're very pleased to support the planning staff's recommendation. And as Senior Planner Fasadi just mentioned, there is definitely language in both the economic development element of the General Plan 2040, as well as the economic development strategy that really bolsters support for the intended zoning amendment. And I won't go too deep, but just some components of the economic development within the general plan do indicate encouraging the use of outdoor public gathering spaces such as courtyards and plazas. This obviously would bode well for our Main Street revitalization effort. Other language talks about promoting experiential retail, including elements such as outdoor dining, pop-up retail, outdoor kiosks, of course, food trucks, music, and other special events that really create that sense of place. There's several strategies and actions within the economic development strategy, and I won't get into it at this point, but I just wanted to raise my hand and say, if approved, this outdoor dining on private property would be permitted, and restaurants and cafes obviously would be able to have this kind of outdoor dining environment, a festive place for placemaking. And so just wanted to say that if this item was to move forward and go before the city council, aside from the safety and design features of the zoning amendment, the reduction in required parking would allow the proposed outdoor dining parklet that is, if it moves forward, would be located between the Best Sandwiches restaurant and Red Chili's, which is located at the corner of Sarah Way and Main Street. We've been working with Dr. Sandu, the property owner there, as well as an architect, to develop an outdoor parklet that would, I think, really be attractive for people to come onto Main Street. So just wanted to say thank you, and I hope that this project is able to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Any questions for Alex? Okay, thank you, Alex. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing.
Can I get a second?
I second that.
All in favor, Alex? Deepak,
Aye.
Mercedes,
Aye.
and myself as an aye.
Sonia is an aye.
Sonia, I keep forgetting about you. I'm sorry.
You're in.
Can I get a motion to approve the project?
I will do it. I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 22-022, recommending that the City Council approve zoning text amendment ZA 22-005, adding a new subsection called 13.19 outdoor dining to Milpitas Municipal Code, Title 11, Chapter 10,
He keeps on forgetting me.
as zoning, Section 13, special uses to allow outdoor dining on private property citywide.
Second.
All in favor? Sonia? I didn't forget you this time.
Aye.
Deepak,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
Mercedes,
Aye.
and myself an aye, and the project is approved.
Very good.
Chair, if
Okay.
I may, both of these items will go forward to thank you very much. Both items will go forward to the Planning Commission with the recommendation of approval, and they're currently scheduled to be heard on November the 15th council meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. There's no new business. So let me read the legalese here. Any person aggrieved by the final decision of any board, commission, or department head in the city of Milpitas may appeal the decision of the city council by filing a written notice of appeal to the city clerk within 12 calendar days of the date and said decision and paying the required fee. The time and limit shall be strictly enforced. I get a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Sonia,
Aye.
Mercedes,
Aye.
Deepak,
Aye.
Alex,
Aye.
and myself as I. Thank you very much.